This episode is sponsored by the Expert Services Directory. Are you a coach, consultant, speaker, or trainer who wants to sell your services to corporate clients across the UK, but you're booking fewer than 5 qualified sales calls from your lead generation each month? Or finding that all of your inbound inquiries are coming from junior employees in firms who just want to benchmark your pricing rather than actually introduce you to the real decision maker who has the buying power to get you in? And you really want to generate real qualified inbound inquiries from decision makers in organisations around the UK who actually have buying power and want to purchase your services as an external supplier? Well, that is exactly what the Expert Services Directory is for. And if you visit www.expertservicesdirectory.com and sign up now, you can generate qualified corporate leads for 12 whole months by being part of the Expert Services Directory, where we proactively market specialist providers just like you to real decision makers in companies across the UK who are ready to buy from external suppliers. And if you use the code podcast at checkout, all caps, you'll also get a free corporate priorities calendar that you can use to understand exactly what decision makers are prioritizing at each point in the year so that you can create solutions that sell all year round as well. All you have to do is visit www.expertservicesdirectory.com and enter the code podcast, all in capital letters, at the checkout now. Right, let's get back to the episode. Welcome to the Selling to Corporate podcast, where we're going to be challenging your sales beliefs around selling to corporate organizations and help you increase your bottom line profits every single month. I am Jessica Lorimer, your sales expert and guide in this world of selling to corporate companies, skyrocketing your company sales and making the impact that you really want in the world. Now, don't forget, if you do enjoy the show today, please do head over to iTunes and leave us a review. But enjoy this episode, and I am really looking forward to sharing some epic sales wisdom with you. Okay, welcome to this episode, and it is summer and it is a heat wave, and I don't know about you, but wherever you're listening, I hope it has air conditioning. It has been a long couple of weeks, and in the UK, if you are here, you'll know that literally nothing is growing anymore, and it looks like a desert outside. Our grass is just dry and crispy, and that's really not not what I was expecting from North Yorkshire, I'll be honest, but wherever you are in the world, I hope that it is about to cool down for you, unless you are one of those rare sun worshippers who really, really enjoys the constant humidity that honestly just makes me look like Monica from Friends when she went to the Bahamas. And if you haven't watched that episode of Friends yet, I don't know. I don't know how you missed it. But let's dig into today's episode because it's an interesting one. And I say that about pretty much every episode, but obviously I'm biased. So we'll see if you think it's an interesting one. But I have noticed something this year more than ever before that has come up in previous years, but is really, really prevalent this year that I want to talk about on the podcast. And before we get into that, I just want to also point out something that has been really interesting this year that I've noticed, which is just how many decision makers and stakeholders inside corporate organizations are booking sales calls in August. Now, if you're listening to this at the beginning of August when it's due to come out, and you have been putting your lead generation on hold because you're like, well, Jess always talks about September's the best time to sell to companies, and it is, I stand by it. I always say, that you have to be prepared for September. You cannot just rock up in September and be like, ooh, I have no new leads. So now I'm going to have to do all of my lead generation, which involves all of my targeting, identifying, and actually approaching leads and trying to book sales calls in that first week of September so that I absolutely nail that selling period. That is highly unlikely. Honestly, I wish it happened, but it doesn't However, every year I hear the same thing. I hear people who get to the end of July and they're like, oh, well, nobody's in the office now, so I'm not going to do anything. I'll just start again in September. And if that's you, because you haven't got a proven lead generation process that you're executing at the moment, or if that's you because you just feel a little bit run down from the year or whatever, I would encourage you to start, because otherwise you are going to get into the first 2 weeks of September. You're going to tell yourself that you can get all the lead generation done from day 1 to day 9 or whenever it is that the children go back to school. It's not going to happen. And then you're going to be like, oh no, now Q4 feels like a bust. And it shouldn't. It doesn't have to. Okay, so even if that means you are doing the bare minimum over summer, even if you're somebody who's bought my cold outreach email conversion course and you've never even opened it, that's the time, right? Now's the time. Just send 1 a week, 2 a week, 10 a week, whatever you can manage, because people inside companies are still operating. Might be slower than normal, but they are booking sales calls. And this year, we are seeing more decision makers and more stakeholders book sales calls in August than I've seen probably in the last 2 years. So it is a very, very good opportunity for you if you can take a moment to step away from the garden and the crispy grass and get sending some proven outreach messages, whatever that looks like. If it's on LinkedIn, if it's on email, but please use a proven process and please do it ASAP. So anyway, the episode today is a bit of a different one than normal because this year, like I say, I've noticed something that is really different in the sales landscape. And I've heard a lot this year about people feel like the market's changed, budgets are lower, pipelines are slower, work isn't being won in the same way. And lots of people are blaming the market. They're saying that it's companies, the companies have got lower budgets. The decision makers are slower to actually make the decision. Budgets are getting pulled. Everyone's investing in AI. They're not investing in leadership, health and wellness, marketing, comms, whatever it is that you focus on. But honestly, I don't think it's the market at all. And that's not what I'm seeing. And I don't say that as somebody who's like, so feel bad. If your year so far has not been going how you wanted it to, you should feel bad about that. I don't think that at all. But I'm seeing my clients inside the C-suite, inside my one-to-one practice, even inside the professional sales teams that I work with, who are doing exceptionally well. In fact, in June and July, when I started looking at the results of my clients, this year we've seen people do phenomenal things. People who had already achieved their entire annual revenue from last year in 6 months in 2026. One of my clients told me last week, I hit 90% of my annual revenue last year in 7 months this year. So actually, I feel like I can relax for the rest of the year. I'm watching my clients sign 40K retainers as coaches and consultants across various areas: leadership, performance, executive coaching, fractional HR resource. It's not quiet. And I don't know where that myth has come from, because that's really, really not the case. In fact, I would say that I've seen clients do better this year than I've seen them do in 2023, which was a bit difficult for a lot of people, right? So I don't understand where the myth has come from. And all I can say is that it's categorically not true. We've talked about this on the podcast before, and I've talked extensively about the difference between somebody who's doing really well and somebody who isn't. And a lot of that does come down to, are they executing a proven sales process? Yes, no. Are they actively troubleshooting that sales process? Yes, no. But there are other things at play. And even I myself, when I'm looking at my work this year, I'm fully booked for Q4 with corporate clients. In October, I'm going to be, it feels like flying around the globe, which I never do. But I'm going to be at Belfast, not at Belfast. Grammatically, that was horrible. I'm going to be in Belfast for Louise Brogan's fabulous event where I'm speaking. I'm going to be in Porto delivering sessions. I'm going to be in Switzerland with corporate clients of mine. I'm going to be in Manchester with corporate clients of mine. I'm going to be in Leeds. October is really busy. And I've actually had to turn previous corporate clients of mine away for Q4 because I said to them in January, February, hey, look, this is my busy season. If you want this work done, you're going to need to book in early. And they've just come back too late because my September, October, November, and December is full. So I think that we need to talk about part of that because I think that whilst a lot of it does come down to following proven sales processes, there's something else that's been more prevalent this year that I think is really leading to this general kind of attitude, this myth that corporates aren't buying, that they're not doing anything. And I actually think it's more to do with apathy and a doom and gloom general feeling than strategy in some cases. And that's because, don't worry, I'm not going to sit here and be like, hey, look, it's all your doom and gloom attitude, because that's A, not fair, and B, not necessarily the case. There are some people who have found this year a real struggle because life has happened. And they have every right to have a doom and gloom attitude about life or to feel a bit apathetic about life. That's absolutely normal. What I'm talking about, though, is this contagious attitude that goes round, that permeates circles. And it starts with somebody saying, oh, yeah, companies, everyone's just pulling budget right now. And someone else who is not feeling happy with their sales process, they go, oh, yeah, and actually they're all investing in AI at the moment. So nobody's investing in executive coaching right now. And then somebody else who isn't happy with their sales process, they chip in and they say, yeah, and actually I've noticed that decisions are just taking longer than ever. I can't get decision makers to move on anything. It doesn't matter what I do. And so what we have is this kind of doom and gloom attitude that was impacting one person that then starts to impact multiple others who then think, actually, maybe my sales process isn't working and maybe it's never going to work. And that attitude is contagious. And we know that because if we looked at other things, so for example, happy customers will talk about their experience with the company to one or two people. Unhappy customers tell on average 10 people how unhappy they are about something. And, I've been that unhappy customer. In fact, recently I ate at a restaurant that I wouldn't normally eat at, but big chain, somewhere that I don't go regularly, but felt quite safe eating at. For those of you who don't know, I've got a severe gluten intolerance. So for me, there are certain places I'm like, that's not going to work out. But anyway, large chain, was told that my meal was gluten-free, only to receive it and be like, that tastes too good. That tastes too good to be gluten-free. And indeed it wasn't. And so annoyingly and unknowingly for me, I had gone and eaten a meal with gluten in it and had an allergic reaction, and it was really, really frustrating. And have I told 10 people about that? No, I've told 10 people that I know, and then I've told all of you on the podcast, and then I'm sure that literally anyone who ever raises that brand's name to me ever again, I'll be like, oh my goodness, did you hear about this time? So we know that negativity can be contagious. We know that we're more likely to share challenging experiences or negative experiences than we are positive. And so if you are in that circle of people who are finding sales a struggle, it's not to say take yourself out of it. It's not to say don't be friends with people. It's to say prioritize your own process first. Look at why your process isn't working. Don't look at why everyone else's isn't and assume that it's the same for yours, because it might not be. And that attitude is so catching, and I'm seeing it so often that I'm watching people who maybe had a small tweak that they needed to do with their sales process actually go on and cause problems in other parts that didn't originally have issues, because they're taking on the fears and the worries and the concerns and the negativity from people who struggle with different parts of their process, right? So that's the first thing I've noticed. And I've noticed it more this year than ever before. I don't know why that is. I think if I had to guess, that it's something to do with the fact that everybody is feeling like the world is a little bit hard right now, and not even a little bit. I feel like I've understated that. We are living in, I feel, the most unprecedented times. Remember during the pandemic, we all used to say it's unprecedented times. And I was like, yeah. Now feels like that is the case because as nations, as countries, as people, we are seeing some of the most big shifts in terms of political landscapes, economical landscapes, changes to motivations around the world. It just feels like there's this lack of positivity sometimes. And that's starting to bleed into people's businesses, and that bleeds into the activities that they do. It bleeds into the way that they troubleshoot. It bleeds into the results that they get. And you can see how this cycle perpetuates. And that is causing a problem for people. So if you are thinking, actually, I'm just tired, you absolutely might be. But you've also got to watch that tiredness isn't actually critically impacting the way that you're doing your sales activities, the way that you're monitoring your sales process, the way that you're troubleshooting, and the results that you're creating. Because there's a big difference between a positive critique of your work and saying, okay, interesting, it looks like I've got a problem with lead generation because I'm not booking a significant amount of sales calls every single month, so I need to work on that, versus, I sent 10 emails, nobody replied, I didn't make any sales from any of the lead generation that I did. It doesn't work. Cold email outreach. It just sucks. Right? There's a big difference. And I know that as I say that, and as I say it like that, people go, oh, and laugh because it sounds so ridiculous. But it is internally what a lot of people are doing and thinking about their sales process. And that's why we have to consciously remind ourselves and be very intentional about understanding and committed to understanding what a best practice sales process actually is and whether we actually have one, right? Because you may have had one in the past that was working really, really well. And then for whatever reason, it stopped. And then you lost confidence. And then it got worse. And now you're like, I'm in the hole. I don't know how this happened. But in theory, you still know what a sales process looks like. It's just that you're not implementing a best practice process anymore, right? And if you are struggling to implement a best practice sales process or understand what one is inside your business, specifically as a coach or consultant, speaker, trainer, or done-for-you service provider who's selling to companies, then join my newsletter list, because at the end of August, I'm going to be running a free training on exactly that, understanding what your best practice process should be and how to troubleshoot your existing process so that in time for September, you can settle down and know what is actually working from your business objectively, what isn't, and what you can do about that. All right. So the only way you can find out about that is to join my newsletter list. Link is in the show notes, or you can message me on LinkedIn, drop me an email, and I'll send you the link directly if I'm not on holiday. Okay. The other thing that has been impacted this year and why we're seeing some of these changes be so stark, and by changes being stark, I mean by some people absolutely smashing the year, having a great time, feeling like it's their best year ever, and some people feeling really low about it, is that there is also a clear divide in implementation. And before you switch off and think, Jess is going to moan at us about taking action, I'm not, but I do want to point out that there is a big set of people who want a quick win so badly that they don't ever fully implement a strategy. What I mean by that is that they inadvertently hop from strategy to strategy. And if it doesn't pay off in their predetermined time, right, they might go, I need a quick win in 2 weeks. I need a quick win in 4 weeks. I need sales that total 50K now. If that doesn't immediately happen, they go, well, this strategy didn't work. I'm going to do something else. And this is a big part of your best practice sales process, and actually understanding what part of your sales process is designed to do what. I had a conversation with a multi-six-figure entrepreneur last week who has set up a corporate consultancy. And they said, I have generated X amount of leads and I've had all these calls and, I made no sales. So my lead generation process is just rubbish. I need to get better leads. And I was like, what? How? how does that tell you you need better leads? The purpose of lead generation is to book qualified sales calls. And so we actually have to start with, well, did you book qualified sales calls or did you book sales calls that you thought were sales calls, but somebody else thought was a networking call, or that wasn't quite the right decision maker? So again, if you're not sure what parts of the sales process should be in your business and what they're actually designed to do, make sure you hop onto my newsletter list, links in the show notes, so that you can get in for the masterclass at the end of August, because we'll be going through that so you can actually understand what it's supposed to do and what that means for you and accurately troubleshoot your sales process. Okay. Now, hopping from strategy to strategy is really difficult because a lot of the time it means that the strategy wasn't ever fully executed. And there are loads of reasons for that. Sometimes it's because actually the person just lacks confidence in the strategy. Maybe they've tried everything and they feel really disheartened with where their business is at. So they do the thing, but they're like, is it really going to work? Should I follow the strategy exactly? Maybe not. Right? And I see it a lot. People will download, and especially with the C-suite over the years, we've had people who've come in and they've downloaded proven templates for things like regenerating opportunities or doing best practice lead generation through email outreach. And they'll say, hey, Jess, I've customized your templates because I didn't think it was exactly me. I didn't think it gave me room to explain all of the stuff that I could do. So I've customized them and I've sent them out and they're not working. And I'm like, no, of course they're not. Because you took what was proven and you added lots of variables that we couldn't control, right? That's not a fault of those people. That's not me saying those people are daft in some way because they're not capable of customizing a template. That's me saying sometimes we have confidence issues. If our business hasn't performed in the right way, or if it has suddenly gone downhill, or if something has changed, or if we lack confidence in ourselves or our ability to do something, or maybe we haven't seen the results as quickly as we wanted to, it can mean that instead of fully implementing a strategy, we sort of half do it rather than having full faith. Because to have full faith in something means that it might not work out. And everyone, for some reason, focuses on why it might not work out instead of, oh my gosh, I could follow this proven thing and it'll definitely be fine because it's proven. We all get like that as human beings, But it does make your sales process more difficult because when you are constantly operating a strategy with this lack of confidence or questioning in its ability, you're spending more time thinking, will it definitely work for me? Or going out and talking to lots of other people who probably aren't qualified as sales trainers or consultants, so have no idea whether or not it'll work. And that inadvertent procrastination means that you're spending more time thinking about it and worrying about it than you are actually implementing it and seeing the results and being able to effectively troubleshoot and tweak if you need to. The other thing that becomes problematic is most people don't follow a proven process. It baffles me, and I have to say it, and that's because I've been running this podcast since 2019. So when I started out running the podcast, I used to caveat this with, you can absolutely bootstrap your business and da-da-da, and you can. But it absolutely baffles me that people will spend thousands and thousands of pounds on qualifications in their chosen area of specialism that do not include any effective sales training. I'm like, how can we expect people to build businesses and sell successfully when they have not come from a sales background, when they don't like selling, when they don't feel confident selling, and yet they're just magically supposed to learn it like overnight because they took a qualification in coaching or a qualification in nutrition or a qualification in, I don't know, speaking. That's just not how it works. So if you are somebody who's like, I haven't had the results that I really wanted, maybe you're somebody who's operated solely on referrals, so you've had some good business, but it's not really been streamlined or predictable, and you're like, yeah, well, I should just work harder. No, no, at some point, you have to follow a proven process. You can't keep hopping around and hoping that you'll find the thing that works for you. And I say that because so many people that I meet are buying really expensive stands at trade shows. I spoke to somebody last week who spent £15,000 exhibiting at a trade show and got no leads. And I was baffled because, I was like, that wasn't the right fit for you. Your decision makers wouldn't have even been there. And the sales team who sold them that spot would have known that. But their responsibility was to their company to generate revenue, not to that person to make sure they got leads. Right? And this is the thing. So, I know that it can be really scary to think about how you want to operate your sales process, but it is going to take you a lot longer to do it yourself, and you're going to experience a lot more in terms of being disheartened and lacking confidence than you would if you were operating something that was already proven to work, that you could troubleshoot immediately if you weren't seeing early indicators of success, rather than always internalizing it and going, oh, it must be me. Right? It must be me. Corporates just hate me. HR directors, they just don't like me. It's like, no, that's not it. Obviously, that's not it. Just you're not doing the right things. And why would you be? You don't know. I talk to professional salespeople and even sales directors all day, every day, who are great at selling but have no idea why. They have no idea. They're operating processes unconsciously because they've seen other people around them doing it. They can't explain why it works. They can't explain what they're doing. They just do it because that's what they've always done. That's what they've been taught to do. You haven't. So it's normal that you wouldn't know, but if you don't at some point say, well, I'm going to commit to my business and actually learn, then it's unlikely that it's going to happen, and it's going to take a very long time if it does. And the third thing is not giving processes a chance to work. We've talked about this a little bit, but I think it's worth reiterating. Everything that happens in your business is an experiment. Even now, I'm 12 years in, and there are things that I do that I'm like, I just want to see what will happen. And that means that I have to have a very clear process and very clear guidelines around seeing what will happen, or the experiment that I'm running, right? So it's not a case of being like, I'll launch a new offer and see if it sells, because that can get dangerous fast. It's a case of going, okay, I want to experiment with a new method of lead generation. Here's the amount of time and energy that I expend on our current method of lead generation. So here's what I'm willing to do to test this new piece. And here's what I'm going to deem to be my success markers. And here's what would indicate good performance early. And here's what would indicate it wasn't working after a defined period of time. Most people don't do that. And again, that falls in line with a lot of the time, most people aren't operating a proven process. So they wouldn't know how to set those parameters necessarily. And they might have preconceived ideas around how early something should be successful, what is working, what isn't, because of their overall metrics. That's why having a proven process is important, because a proven process will tell you, okay, well, you've spent 5 weeks doing email outreach. If you're operating our cold email outreach conversion course, here are the 3 reasons that you would not have achieved the steady sales calls that you needed to. There are only 3. But for most people, they won't give the process a chance to work because they're not sure what they're looking for. So they might say, yeah, I've tried everything. I've done cold email outreach, but actually their parameters were completely different. They had an idea that they might tailor every single first email. They might not have had a follow-up process in place. They might have judged the success of their outreach to be how many sales did it make versus its actual purpose, which is booking sales calls. And so they said, okay, well, I sent 10 emails, or I sent 20 emails, or I sent 50 emails, and I didn't get any sales. So that's it. Email outreach doesn't work for me. And if you're sat there thinking, oh, that's ridiculous, these are things that I genuinely hear from people. They're not things that I judge, because the people I work with aren't professional salespeople in the entrepreneur space, right? You're coaches and consultants with your own areas of specialism, not all from professional sales backgrounds. But it does mean that these are the things that I hear and that I think are concerning, because what we then see is this continuous hopping from strategy to strategy. Oh, email outreach doesn't work, so I'm going to go and do LinkedIn outreach. Right, I sent 50 LinkedIn messages, didn't get any sales, so I'm going to go and do networking. Right, I went to 5 networking events and, I booked some sales calls, but they were all with the wrong people, so networking doesn't work for me either. And they just burn through different strategies because they weren't sure how to set them up correctly in the first place or how to measure them in the first place. And then the worst bit of all of this is not that things don't work, because you'll do loads of things in your business that work and that don't work, but that you're always stuck at the same difficult point, right? I say to my clients all the time, the hardest bit of selling to companies is the first year doing it. It's the hardest bit, because in the first year selling to companies, you are learning and implementing all new skills. Right? Doesn't mean that you won't sell. Got loads of clients who've been super successful, never sold to companies before, gone on to have phenomenal first years in business where they've generated 50K, 80K, multi 6 figures in their first year as somebody who's brand new. But that's because they go through the hard part once, right? They take the proven process to go, oh gosh, I don't like lead generation because I feel really uncomfortable about reaching out to people proactively. What if I'm a burden? What if my messaging doesn't work? What if I target the wrong people? What if this happens? And they do that once. And then they start seeing results. And so lead generation becomes less painful. And then they worry about, sales calls. And they think, okay, well, I'm really nervous about sales calls. What happens if the person doesn't like me? What happens if they don't think I'm credible? Maybe they go on to a sales call and it feels more like an interview and they're like, oh gosh, I've absolutely car crashed it. Like, they do all of this, but they do it once. Whereas when we see people who are coaches and consultants who are hopping from strategy to strategy, whether it's trying out multiple lead generation strategies or trying out multiple ways of holding sales calls or trying out multiple ways of going on and doing follow-ups after they've sent proposals, like whatever it is, the more they chop and change, the harder it gets. And they're constantly stuck in this cycle of it doesn't work, it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And they don't get to a point where it does work easily. And that's why people who are newer to selling to companies really, really struggle, because that first year where you're learning all those skills, a lot of it is you having to build your network within the corporate space. It's lead generation, it's business development. And if you keep chopping and changing strategies and not implementing them fully, guess what? They don't work. And you just have to do that hard bit again and again, because you never get to the fun bit, right? And the fun bit is delivering to your clients and then helping them spot other opportunities. We call it account maximization. It means having an effective upsell or resell process. So every client suddenly becomes more than one deal, more than one sale. Your average transaction value goes up. Suddenly everyone's wanting to refer you. Suddenly you're getting inbound leads. And it's you hit this magical period where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm untouchable. I'm getting leads from everywhere. Our new leads convert. We've got warm relationships referring us left, right, and center. This is amazing. But if you don't have a process and you don't implement a process, you never get there. You just sit in the bit where you're like, ugh, nobody knows me. Nobody knows how great I am. Everyone ignores me. Everyone ignores my emails. Nobody wants to book a sales call with me. You just sit in that for months and months and sometimes even years. And I think that is the worst bit, right? Is sitting in that hard bit repeatedly. Perhaps because you lacked the confidence to implement a strategy, or you didn't have a proven process, or something else entirely. But whatever you're doing this August, I really want you to step back. I really want you to think about your business. And I want you to think about, what were the things you actually wanted from it? What were the things that were positive? What did you dream of? And then think, okay, am I willing to commit to that? Am I willing to do the work? Not the hard work, not the sitting in silence at your desk every day and going, oh gosh, this didn't work for me, that doesn't work for me, this is a challenge. I'm just going to sit in this hard bit for months and months. But committing to, okay, have I bought one of Jess's courses? Have I actually opened it? Right? Have I actually gone and done the things inside it? Have I actually used the templates? Go and do that. And you will set yourself up for a really exciting, really successful Q4 that could completely change your entire year. We've got some really exciting episodes coming up on the podcast. We are bringing back some epic clients to share their experiences of what it's really like to sell in the B2B sales space in 2026. Yay, I'm very excited. So please make sure that you join us for that. And if you have enjoyed today's episode, make sure that you sign up for the newsletter list because A, I share a bunch more of this type of stuff on my newsletter each week, and B, you'll get access first to the free masterclass I'm going to be running at the end of August. And by first, I mean basically it, because that's where I'll put it. Have a really lovely rest of your week, and I will see you in the next episode.